Okay, so if you can all mute yourselves, I'm ready to begin, and our tour is Jaffa for families. So some of the things you're going to know already, some of the things are new, but I hope that I give you some ideas how to make it hands-on, that our kids who are not actually crazy about learning history will find it more interesting. So I have my highlighter, and our topic is Jaffa for families. And over here, I'd like to begin with the most famous sticker that you're going to find on our Jaffa Oranges, which we'll be speaking about later on in the tour. Over here, I have Yaffo in modern Hebrew. Over here, Yaffo in ancient Hebrew, and a special thank you for Susie for helping me with this. Jaffa in English, Jaffa in Russian, in Greek, hieroglyphics, and in Chinese. Jaffa in so many different languages because throughout history, people have been coming from all over the world. This was the gateway to the land, the gateway to Zion, the gateway to Jerusalem. When we think about Jaffa, most of us just think about the old city over here with the clock tower and the port. Jaffa also has a neighborhood of Neve Tzedek that was established in 1818, I'm sorry, I knew I would do this, 1887. And we have the Ajami neighborhood, and we have the American colony. The Americans from Maine tried to come and settle in the land. It didn't work, and the Templars came along, and they were more than happy to go and take over their area. I'd like to begin now with the Statue of Faith that was created in the 1970s by an artist with the name of Daniel Caffrey. And basically, I think everyone here are Olim. At one point, we made the journey, and until airplanes were discovered, this was the way that everyone would come into the land. And what I'd like you to do now is to look at the statue and see if you can find a ram and see if you can find ram's horns. It's not the best angle, but over here we have our ram. And what is the story going on here? This is the sacrifice of Isaac, Akedat Yitzchak. Over here we see the feet of Avram Avinu, and Abraham is holding up his son Isaac, being offered as a sacrifice. Abraham, who is told, Lech lecha me'artzecha me'moladetecha, to come into the land. And he's told here now to sacrifice his son. At the last moment, a voice comes out from heaven and says, do not touch the child. And instead, a ram is found in the bushes, and the ram is offered as a sacrifice instead. So we have over here the first pillar where Abraham is coming in on our left. On our right, I think someone has a microphone off. If you can turn up your microphones, please. Alex, please turn off your microphone. Lisa, please turn off the microphone. On the right, we have Yaakov, who is dreaming. And we have angels who are going up to heaven and coming down from heaven. And sometimes, yes, we are not able to stay in the land. Sometimes we need to leave temporarily and eventually, hopefully, come back. On top, we have when the children of Israel come into the land, and the first city that they conquer is the city of Jericho, where they blow their shofarot. And in the background, you can see the view of the city of Tel Aviv. Going back in history, we have a gate that was found, and one of the writings you can see on the gate are hieroglyphics, pictures that tell a story. And the story that's told here, this is of course a copy, the story that's told here is about King Thutmose. And he wants to go, Thutmose III, he wants to conquer the city of Jaffa, which is surrounded by walls. And he has a general by the name of Dahuti, who had devises an amazing plan of how to do it. And he goes to the gate and he calls out to the governor. And he says to the governor, I no longer want to be loyal to the ruler. I want to come and be part of you. And I have a sepulcher here of the ruler that I will give to you. The governor was a little wary, but he was also very greedy. So he went and opened up the gate. Quickly, he was captured. And then he had a plan, the general. He had brought with him 200 very large wicker baskets, hid the soldiers inside with their ammunition, and had a procession going into the gates of the city. The people of Jaffa were so excited, they thought they had now 200 woven baskets filled with treasures. No sooner did they get into the gate, the soldiers came out and conquered the city. This is very similar to the story of the Trojan horse. We have the wishing bridge, and everyone, when they have a birthday, they have a different zodiac sign. The zodiac signs are found in different places throughout the old city of Jaffa. We have over here the wishing bridge, and by tradition, it's a legend that if you go and stand on the bridge and put your hands on your zodiac sign, I happen to be Dakim, I'm born in March, look out towards the sea, make a wish, and hopefully it will come true. As I said, it's a legend, but it doesn't hurt. And it's good for the kids to figure out what their zodiac signs are. When we speak of Jaffa, as I showed you in the first slide, the main industry was the Jaffa Oranges, and they established the Shamuti orange, which has a thick peel, very few pits, and what's very special about it, it is very good for export. The orange industry was a joint industry with Arabs and Jews working together side by side, but as time went on, the cost of real estate, the cost of water, and the cost of labor became too expensive, and it was decided it was much more financial to go and to sell the land. In fact, today, when you get a Jaffa orange, there's a good chance that it's coming from Spain and not from Israel. The Israeli government sells royalty rights throughout the world for people to go and put their name on the Jaffa orange, because the Jaffa orange is known to be a very tasty, high quality orange. We have over here the floating orange, a sculpture built by Ron Morin, and there's different ways of interpreting it. Maybe this is already, the orange is no longer connected to the ground because the real estate got too high, or maybe it is a way of growing things, and is to go and remember that the oranges were a very important part of the land of Israel, and especially of the port city of Jaffa. When an immigrant arrives or a pilgrim arrives, he needs a place to sleep. And we have here the synagogue and the first hostel that was built in the city of Jaffa in 1740. It was established to go and house people that they would be able to stay. It also had a synagogue and a mikvah. This is called the Yaakov Zonani Synagogue. Unfortunately, in the riots of 1929, the synagogue closed. After 1948, Shaul Magenzi came to Jaffa, and he was looking for a place to have a synagogue. He met a Franciscan priest, and when he explained what he was looking for some reason, he had the keys to this building. It is used now on Shabbatot by the Lebanese community in Jaffa. You can see we have over here the Magen David, the arch. And now I'd like to welcome you to the very narrow alleyways of Jaffa. And I'd like to point out the balcony that has exposure to 3 sides. Over here, we can see an air conditioner, which today is the way we'll cool our homes. But before the air conditioners were discovered, what we would do is make protruding windows that you can catch the breeze coming from the ocean. In Europe, they have also similar oriel to go and help you catch a breeze. And this is where you would put your fruits and vegetables to cool off. The alleyways now are used basically for galleries and for artists to show off their wares. If you come visit at night, you have your yellow highlighted that you shouldn't, God forbid, fall. Okay, Uri Geller. Uri Geller, the illusionist, decided to open up a museum in Jaffa. Donna's iPhone, please silence. If everyone can just mute themselves, please. Thank you. And Lisa. Uri Geller decides to open up a museum. Unfortunately, Corona came along and the opening keeps on getting delayed. The new date is it's going to open up in August. And when he goes to make all sorts of lighting and electricity, they discovered an amazing soap factory in the basement. They found a soap factory also in the old Serya, 2 soap factories in the city of Jaffa. And for years, Jaffa was known for the exporting soap, but today it's no longer being used. But if you want to get if you want to get pure olive oil soap, there are still 2 soap factories that are producing olive oil soap in Shechem. And to today, they're making it the way that they made it years ago. They first go and cook up for about 10 hours olive oil and lye. Then they pour it out on the floor. Then they have a special way with a string of marking off the different squares. Wait till it hardens. Go and pile it up in piles. Give it a few weeks to dry. And to today, they are still packaged by hand. It's supposed to be a very pure soap. Maybe the next time I get to the old city, I'll go and try out a bar. Napoleon. Napoleon, who has a plan of establishing a Jewish state. He wants to get the Jews to be on his side and to support him. Napoleon, who frees the Jews from the ghettos in Europe. Napoleon, who has a plan, coming up from Egypt, he comes to conquer the city of Jaffa. And we were told by one of Napoleon's officers that the orange was such a special treat that it was a fruit of royalty. Napoleon comes to Jaffa and he goes and he conquers the city, continues up to Akko, does not succeed in conquering the city, comes back down to Jaffa. He has many soldiers who have the plague, and instead of taking them back to Europe, he murders them. Also on his path, many Jews died. This is another fountain. This is the fountain of the Zodiac Fountain, very whimsical, different designs. And what's very interesting is underneath it is an actual well where they would draw water from when they were living, people that live in the city. There is a beautiful museum in Jaffa, but for some reason it is temporarily closed. I hope someday soon it will open up again. What's interesting about the plaza here is before we saw very, very narrow alleyways. All of a sudden we have in the Kedumim Square very, very large open space. What's going on? The story behind it is after the 1929 riots, the British soldiers went and demolished 200 homes to enable better security. The story of Yonah, when we think about Yonah, we think about the plan. The game plan is to go to Nineveh, and he's not interested. And in the Bible, we're told that he goes down to the port city of Jaffa and takes a boat in the other direction. And when there's a terrible storm, there is a lottery that's drawn. And when I'm guiding groups, and you can think of also here, different lotteries throughout Jewish history. One is by Yonah and the boat, another one down the road, 1909, when they go and pull the lotteries to see which plots the people will get in the new city of Tel Aviv. If anyone wants to join in with other ideas of different lotteries, we have of the Lamed Hay, the 35 to go and identify the last bodies. We have the lottery of the holiday of Purim. And it's an interesting topic to get people to start thinking about different things and different lotteries throughout Jewish history. Oh, sorry. Okay, my name is Adina, and on our way down to the port, I'd like you to look for a store that has my name on it. And of course, to look for a lighthouse. The lighthouse was built in 1865, and it lasted until 1966, when the port of Ashdod was built, and they went and they took the lighting from this lighthouse and brought it down to the port. The lighthouse is a sign, land ho, soon we'll be arriving at our destination. On the right, we have the store Adina Plastilina, and you can see what an inside home looks like. And over here, they decided they want to go and enlarge the gallery, and they discovered inside here an ancient structure, and they decided to go out of plastilina and make the history of Jaffa. Over here, you can see the ancient port of Jaffa and small boats, because the port of Jaffa was way too shallow for boats to come all the way in. So what would happen is these little boats would come out to the big boats, and either ropes were drawn, or people would jump down, or the porters would go and carry them. And I'd like to share with you a story. I have a book which is called Such Were Our Fighters by a man by the name of Reuven Avi Noam. Avi Noam, he changed his name because his son Noam died. And he collected different stories from different soldiers who had passed away. And the story I'd like to share with you is Dani Mas, and it's called Bringing in the Illegals. And he speaks about how in 1947, how they would get the call to go out and stand in the freezing cold water and go and help the people come in. And some people were scared and they didn't know what to do. And there was a great risk. Everyone who came to help, if they were caught, they would be shipped out to Cyprus, to Latrun. And the answer that everyone had to give and asked, who are you, is Ani Yehudi Me'eretz Yisrael, which is a very, very powerful statement. I have a nephew who was in Europe, and he did one of the tours, and in the beginning of the tour, the guide asked each person to say where they're from. One young man puffs out his chest and he says, I am from Palestine. So my nephew went over to me and says, oh, hey, I'm from Oranit. Where are you from? And he started to stammer and turn red. He says, well, actually, I'm from LA, but my ancestors, they are from Palestine. And I thought to myself, if each time any Jew anywhere over in the world would say, where are you from? And they would say, Ani Yehudi Me'eretz Yisrael, Yes, temporarily I am in Barcelona or in Chicago or anywhere, but Ani Yehudi Me'eretz Yisrael. They said also that the fare to take the boat from Europe to the Jaffa port was about the same price it took to get these little boats on shore, but you didn't have much choice. I have an invitation. We're all invited now to come and receive the new rabbi that is coming to the land in Tafresh Samid Daled, 1904. And what time is he arriving? Baboker. We don't know. This is a boat. Can't be too exact. And who is this rabbi? Rav Avraham Yitzchak HaKohen Cook, who will be living in the Neve Tzedek neighborhood. Two stories I'd like to share with you about Rav Avraham HaKohen Cook. The artist and writer Nachum Gutman was a neighbor. He lived a few houses down, and he would try very hard to time it. When he would go and walk to school, the roads were not paved. The roads were made out of sand. And he would try to time it that he would walk out at the same time when Rav Cook would go out to shul, and he would try to step in his footsteps because he felt that he was a very great man. Another story I like to share about Rav Cook is a story of Aryeh Levin, who came to visit Rav Cook in Yafo. And after Mincha, they went for a walk, probably through the orange groves. And without thinking, Rav Aryeh Levin went and plucked a leaf off the tree. And Rav Cook looked at him and he said, Dalacha, you should know that each blade of grass has an angel that tells it to grow. Rav Cook was the Rav in Yafo for several years, and then he became the chief rabbi in Jerusalem. Cedars of Lebanon are mentioned that when Shlomo HaMelech goes to build the Beis HaMikdash, he wants to use the finest possible materials that there are. And he goes and he has trade relations with King Hiram, and they go and build rafts and go and send the planks down to the port of Jaffa, and then they are hauled overland up to Yerushalayim. We are told a very wealthy Egyptian decides to send two beautiful gates to the land, Nicanor's gates. And on the way, there's a terrible storm, and they need to throw one of the gates overboard. But when they reach the port, there's a miracle, and the second gate is under the boat. The British in 1927 decided to go and advance the situation instead of having the little boats having to go out. And you can see how far the boat is. The boat cannot get very close. The boat has to be pretty far out. They built a little railway train, which they call the Taranzina, a corruption of the last name of the inventor, called Darius. And I have here an artist's painting of the same idea of trying to get the produce out to the boats and whatever supplies are coming back in. The train would start from Jaffa once the train was established in 1892, about a 6-hour trip traveling from Jaffa to Lud to Ramla. And what's interesting, before the main street in Ramla became Herzl, it was called Jaffa Street. And the train would continue up to Jerusalem. A very, very long, slow-moving trip. Today we pride ourselves, we try to get you on the same route in less than 1 hour. My daughter, I'm Jewish mom, forgive me. My daughter studied in Bezalel, and one of the projects she needed to do was to go to one of the hangars where the fishermen store their supplies. the British did two very important things by the port. They went and extended the port, three things actually. They extended the port, they deepened it, made it deeper, and also they built hangars. And over here, my daughter Ahuva went and she interviewed the fishermen, drew their picture, the fish that they like to fish, and a recipe of how to make it. When you visit, it's the last hangar, and when you go inside, there are usually fishermen there who are busy fixing their nets because they usually do their fishing at night. And I tell them I'm Ahuva's mom, and they say, "Oh, Ahuva." Baruch Hashem. Another machsan. And now we're going to come back to the clock tower square. But before we get to the clock tower, we have over here what we call a Sabeel. A Sabeel is a water fountain. We have the large mosque over here. Before going to a mosque, one needs to wash their hands and their feet. And right over here, there was a wall, and you can look on the ground and you see where the tiling changes into asphalt. This is where the wall was. And there's a story about a ruler in the early 1800s by the name of Abu Nabut. That wasn't his real name, but he would walk around with a club, and anyone who found disfavor in his eyes, he would basically bash with his club. One day we are told that Abu Nabut decided to take a walk in the beautiful orchards, the beautiful orange orchards, and maybe it was the time where the trees were starting to blossom and the fragrance is absolutely magnificent, and he fell asleep. When he comes back, the gate is locked, and he calls to the gatekeepers and says, "Open up!" And they say, "No, we're not allowed to open up by orders of Abu Nabut." He says, "I am Nabut." And they said, "Yes, sure. Tell me about it." Well, Abu Nabut spent the night outside. This Sabeel, we have about an 8-minute drive from here. There's another Sabeel, also built by Abu Nabut, on the road from Jaffa to Jerusalem. When a leader wants to show a way of pleasing the people, he goes and makes these little luxuries for them also. And we have shops on both sides of the street. We have here the clock tower, one of many clock towers found throughout the Ottoman Empire in honor of the 25th Abul Hamid's anniversary. He went and built clock towers. There was a man by the name of Joseph Mayal, and he happened to have something that nobody else had. He had a pocket watch, and he had a store by this square before the clock tower existed, and the train had already started. And when anyone was running to the train, they would stick their head in the store and say, "Monsieur Moyal, what time is it? Will I make the train? Will I make the train or not?" And when they went to collect donations to build the clock tower, well, he was one of the first. And we have over here the diligence. This was the way of traveling from Jaffa to Jerusalem, and it was a very, very long and uncomfortable route. And I'll ask you, and of course you're all on mute so you can't answer me, but where are these different clock towers? This one is in Shechem. This one is in Sfat. Over here we have one in Akko. And this one is a little tricky because it does not exist anymore. We are here in Jerusalem. This is Jaffa Gate. Over here, the entrance that was broken down in 1898 for Kaiser Wilhelm to come in. If you notice over here, there is another Sabeel right outside the gate for people to have what to drink. And the British decided that this clock tower is extremely ugly, and they decided to knock it down. This is the square of the clock tower, and over here we have 4 pillars, and these are the remains of the Serya, where during 1947 the Irgun had enough of the Arabs who were busy shooting out and harming people, and they blew it up. So we have here basically a memorial of what the Serya looked like. And we finished with the old city. We're on our way now to the flea market. And as they say, one man's garbage is another man's treasure. And you can spend hours and hours in flea market looking around, getting your Coca-Cola t-shirts, your Tzahal t-shirts, Armenian dishes, all sorts of mezuzot, shofarot, all sorts of treasures. And one artist caught my eye, the Abulafia Bakery, since 1879. The year 1870, the walls of the old city come down and they fill the moat that was there. And 1879, Abulafia goes and opens up a bakery. Next to the Abulafia Bakery was a shoe factory by a man by the name of Mr. Stauber. And Mr. Stauber would see, and it hurt him so terribly, that every year on Pesach, there were lines and lines of Jews who were going to buy bread, because you couldn't buy bread in any of the stores in Israel over Pesach. And one day, Mr. Stauber went up to Abulafia and said to him, "How much do you make that week of Pesach?" He says, "Oh, that's my best week. I make enough to buy an apartment in Jaffa." He said, "I want to make a deal with you. I want to go and give you that money if you are closed on Pesach." And he agreed. And that week they went and did all sorts of repairs in the bakery, and they took a little vacation. And this went on for 5 years. The 6th year, a month before Pesach, Mr. Abulafia comes to the man. He says to him, "You don't have to give me any money. Allah has blessed me by keeping my store closed on Passover." Over here, we have a picture of the grandsons. This is Chaim Stauber and Abulafia, Said Abulafia, and he's holding the contract that his grandfather, but the two grandfathers signed over many years ago. Nirit Levav. Do you notice what material we have here? These are bicycle chains. And she goes and makes these adorable dogs out of bicycle chains. Originally, she made bridal gowns, but she found the brides and the moms too difficult to deal with. So she decided she would rather go and make dogs. We're coming to an end, and I'd like to do a summary. Over here I have dress up for the kids, because this is a family tour. And we start with the period of the Egyptians, move on to the Greek. When the Romans come in, we have Napoleon, the British, and the sailors. Okay, I'd like to thank you for joining me here, and you are welcome to open your mics if you have any questions. If not, I'll say goodbye.
Adina, that was wonderful.
Adina, that was great.
Okay.
A lot of fun. A lot of fun.
It's really great.
Very nice.
Let's go there together sometime, Adina.
Julia, we'll have a date tomorrow. I don't know if we're actually going, but
I hope.
Amazing. So this PowerPoint is recorded.
okay.
Yes.
Tell us about.
Thank you very much.
Thank
When I
you,
get the
Adina.
link, you know, about once a week,
Yeah.
Judy reminds us what the link is to go look at the old ones, the recordings.
Yes.
So I can forward that to you.
Yeah, it will be
But
nice.
I don't have your email. I think I have your
No, and I should have taken my card, and I forgot to take this one. I think I forgot it because I was forgetting those kind of things. With our writing.
Okay, we're good? No questions? No, you have to take off your, you're on mute. Malka, you're on mute. No, Malka, you're still on mute. Unmute yourself.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I just, when you were pointing at those two grandsons of the Abulafia and Stauber,
Yeah.
it was from your little pointer on my little phone. Which one was which? So can you just?
The one holding the contract is Abulafia.
The one holding the contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And the other one's Stauber. Do you have?
Do I have what?
Where can one get that picture? Did you take it?
I can't hear you, Donna.
You take. Is it available online?
Yeah, sure. I can send you the link. I'll put the link up on ISRA Guides.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Great. Thanks.
Adina, this was wonderful. Thank you.
It was fun. I was supposed to have a tour. My cousin called me, and then Corona came along. So hopefully someday soon we'll get there.
God willing.
I like the Napoleon hat I made. It turned out that it's a little small, so I have to make one just a little bigger. And those, of course, are my adorable grandchildren who I tortured yesterday and had them all go and try on the hats and take pictures.
No, that's cute. I enjoyed the Abulafia story also. Didn't know that. That's really great.
I tried. And did you know that the British went and destroyed 200 houses in the Kadumim Square?
I did not know that either. I
thought
never
that
thought
was-
about why. Huh.
Because, you know, if you think about it, you know, in the old city of Jerusalem, you don't have all of a sudden these wide plazas. You have tiny little narrow alleyways.
Right. So presumably that was part of the same city of Jaffa with narrow alleyways and wow. Nope, no idea. Never thought about it. Great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
That's what I tried to do. I tried to give things that, you know, little pointers.
That was very, very nice.
Adina,
Yes, Malka.
Adina.
Yes.
Adina?
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
But, you know, when you talked about the British destroying those houses, it kind of reminded me of Israel destroying the houses by the Kotel to make the Kotel Plaza. Otherwise, there would be no big plaza there either. So it's been done, but well, this was done, the British did it earlier, but I guess it's not unheard of. Interesting, though. Very interesting.
Okay. Malka. Now I don't hear you. Maybe you have to take your plugs out. You're on mute. You have to demute. Okay, now you're not on mute. I still don't hear you. Give me a call. Okay, thank you all very much. Bye.